Well, for the next 45 minutes, I want all you guys just to have your full focus on stage for everything that we're going to talk. And for those lost in conversation or a bit distracted, just get us an extra mic for Her Highness Khalifa. She'll just shout at you guys, get your attention back to what we are speaking. So, well, what we're going to be, the topic that more or less we're going to be discussing is what it's called. It's a shift in the power equation. Come to the topic per se, I think the people on stage just answer that question by itself. Each of the women that I have with me over here have their own inspiring story, their own inspiring journey. And I think 45 minutes is too short a time to impact a change of this magnitude. But whatever we speak today, I think we can, with your stories and your perspectives, we can at least inspire a change and take meaningful insights back. So to break this conversation down, we are going to be having 3 sections to it. First, we will go to what exactly do we mean by shift in the power equation? What does this powerful woman mean and how do you define it? Post that, we'll go to see how does this shift in the power equation happen through personal experiences and journeys of all our panelists. And last, we come to the main question of why, the whole purpose. Why is this shift in power equation so important? So to begin, let me just set a bit of context over here on what exactly are we dealing with. See, in India per se, we have close to 685 women. And 60% of this population segment is employable. That's, you can say, somewhere between 18 to 55 years of age. Now, you might say that's a huge number considering India's population, and that could be a massive impact on our GDP, but no. Even 60% of this employable population contributes somewhere close to 16 to 17% of our GDP, which is way below global figures. Even China has 40% of its GDP attributed to women. In this figure which we are talking about, we have close to 70% of this population that has a literacy rate, and the gross enrollment ratio somewhere close to 23%. Now, all of this might seem grim figures, but considering the decade and all the initiatives put together by our government and women business leaders, I think we've made waves, we've come quite far. So, coming to the first part of our conversation, that is, when we're saying shift in power equation, I'd like to know, ma'am, from you all, I mean, you could take your mics, please. Let's start with Rekha, ma'am. You have worked with women, you have dealt with cases across strata. And when we say a powerful woman or the shift in power equation, could you tell me how would you define a powerful woman?
Morning everyone. So I will not say shift in power equation. I will say women acquiring or women demanding their rightful place, which they were not demanding earlier. But now I think they are having their voice and it is being heard all over. They already they were powerful, and as earlier also somebody from the audience said that women are empowered. But they need to know that they are empowered. For empowering, I mean that they can take their own decisions. And most of the time, they can't take their own decisions. But now, because of education, because of opportunities, they have started taking their own decisions. And when we are talking about power shift, power doesn't mean that she is going for work or she is sitting at home and is a homemaker. Power means that even if she is earning, she knows where to spend her money. If she is at home, she has her say how to run home. She has her say what to buy, what not to buy, how she can raise her children. And that also should be her say, that whether she wants to work or whether she wants to sit at home and take care of the family. But most of the time in the past we have seen that this was not the case. And this was because we have gender discrimination, not only at the workplaces, but also in the families. And at the places of work, we have seen, even if the women are working and they don't even know that they are going through gender discrimination, because it is called second generation gender discrimination, which even women don't know that they are suffering, because there is no one at the top position who has who is there to handhold her, who can be an example. A woman at the top can be an example for other women also at the workplace who are working. And subtly there is a discrimination within the workforce that she doesn't know that it is there. And when I'm talking about gender discrimination at family, even in the families, they let their children, sons go in better schools. They let their sons work wherever they want to go and work. But for girls, they have different rules. And from there, it starts their long struggle, which is changing. When we are saying that power shift, this is what is shifting, that it is changing the mindset of the people in the family, also changing. And now women realize their own strength. That is the most important thing. When you realize that strength lies in you, then you can do anything and you can conquer the world.
Speaking of strengths, Arundhati ma'am, so currently you've been, heading Salesforce, and before that you've headed one of our premier institutions, SBI, and fortunately that's one of the brands I handle. And sometimes when I go to SBI for meetings, even today, I remember some of the veterans, they would speak about your leadership over there as if it was an era. It was like we were there in that meeting, and then Arundhati ma'am was there, and then board decision hua and stuff. While Rekha ma'am just told us about, ability is not even a question. Obviously, women have the entire ability. It is perception that's holding it back. You not just met expectations, you exceeded them in your institutions. So, what is your take? How would you define the entire power equation, or women in power?
So, if you talk about women in power, coming from corporate India, I definitely feel that a big change is still in the offing. It has not happened. You go into boardrooms and you see how many splashes of color there are. It's mostly blacks and blues and grays and browns. Okay? You go into any of the C-suites and check how many of those C-suites are actually, manned or womaned by women, and you'll find very few of them. So if you look at the kind of people that we are still seeing in leadership positions, and if you see the number of women over there, in SBI for instance, we were taking in about 33% of women at the beginning level, that's at the level of the probationary officers. At the senior management level, that percentage of women would fall from 33 to 4. Just 4% of the top management were made up of women. So obviously there is a very leaky pipeline, and there is a very, a very big opportunity over there to shift it around in order to ensure that there is more balance. I do not want, while going into a boardroom, to point out that there I can see a woman. I want it to be equally divided, 50-50. And I want this to happen across industry. I want this to happen across every kind of organization. That has not happened. And it has not happened because I think, it's a long journey. The first probationary officer to enter SBI entered 50 years before I did. It took us a 50-year journey to get into the C-suite, to get into the corner suite. I think we are all on that journey. And being on that journey, it's very important today that all of us become stakeholders for it, which is men and women, which is why, again, I'm so happy to see quite a sprinkling of gentlemen over here, because y'all are as much a stakeholder in this as we are. Because believe me, the moment you bring balance anywhere, in nature, in boardrooms, in your workspaces, anywhere where there is balance, the outcome is far superior than what it is if it's unbalanced. If you're actually, you know, producing stuff for society, remember 50% of those consuming it will be women. And if you don't take their views into consideration, your products will not, you know, apply to 50% of those who could be possible consumers. So this change in equation, this change where women have a voice to say what they need, what they think, what they feel, this balance, so to speak, is something I think that we need to bring about.
That's rightly said. You know, even a recent Deloitte survey kind of took into consideration around 150 corporates, and they said that men more so are 42% more likely to be pushed up the ladder to executive roles. And of late, we'll come to the positives at the end of the conversation, because there is been a trend. Vidya ma'am, while we were talking some time ago, you had an opinion, as you said, that gender in today's world is not just male female. It's too broad a word, and you know, inclusion is something that's come in as a norm. What was while we talk about the shift in power equation, we obviously debated if there first need to be a share in power equation or an existence of power equation. So what was your take on the entire? Yeah, it's on. You could just.
Good morning. Thanks, Terence, for that question. I'm speaking from
Hold it
engineering point of view.
Yeah. You can hold it a little bit closer. Yeah.
Is it okay now? Okay. So I will take this question from the engineering perspective. I am heading a very large engineering firm, and there the criteria for any leader is merit, nothing else. So I would like to send out this message that as long as you have that merit, that competency, and that desire to deliver and perform, man, woman, no matter. So if we say we need to shift that power or share that power without addressing the fundamental question of competency, of the ability to deliver those results, I think we'll be diluting that narrative. We should not. It is going to be counterproductive if we say we're just bringing in women to shift that power. It may give you short-term results, but finally it is going to be counterproductive, because it's also a way of discriminating against people who have the merit. So my argument has always been that the most eligible person, the most qualified person, not man or woman, person, should be there, should be holding that power. Thank you.
So to take gender out of the question is.
Arundhati, when you say the competence, so this discrimination starts from home. For competence, they have to get equal education and equal opportunities also.
Certainly.
So we have to provide them that, then only they will be able to reach to that competence. So there we need to work on it. There is a discrimination over there, even in the opportunities. When they are of same caliber, most of the time men get better chances to go up than women. So that
I do
need to be
agree with
addressed.
you. The solution lies at the grassroots. You know, that is why now more and more our efforts as organization, even Government of India, they're tackling the education level where girls are given a lot of opportunities. There you can give them some concessions, but train them the same way, because tomorrow they have to crack the same questions in the exams. There is no separate set of questions for women or girls. So you have to go through those filters. So at the base level, empower them, give them trainings, give them concessions, give them special treatment. But when they come on par at that platform to compete, they must compete with the best of the world.
You know, while I will fully agree with you that meritocracy is all that we should look at, but you know, even when you have two candidates, both equally meritorious, one is a woman, one is a man, there is a lot of unconscious bias. I have seen it myself, where you know, you feel that will the woman prioritize her family over work, and therefore should I choose the man? And this question has been actually posed, that will you prioritize your family over, you know, a deadline that you have? And I've had to answer that question, saying that, I will prioritize my family if my family deserves priority at that point of time, and so should you. Being a man, if you have a child in hospital, you would want to be besides the child's bed, as would a woman. So I don't really see what the difference is. And if there is a deadline on the other hand, and I can deprioritize my family and prioritize work, I will do that. But this question, would it be asked to a man? It wouldn't be asked to a man.
Yeah,
so that is where,
I think
it's those problems arise.
Yeah. See, it's a trajectory. I think pre-performance limitations and post-performance limitations. The whole idea is leveling the playing field, getting everyone at par, and then taking a call. There are biases on both sides, which brings me to the part of how. How do women exactly overcome these challenges? Because if you see a lot of recent surveys done and the actual scenario, and a lot of you all have worked at that levels, you would know access to capital is one of a big challenge. The patriarchy still dominates. A lot of the high revenue sectors are still owned or run by men. And just to give you an example, of all the startups funded in 2019, only 12% of them were actually women founders. So there is a certain bias that seeps in even when we level the playing field. However, there is a balance, as ma'am mentioned also. There's a certain balance that women could kind of bring, which is like you balance your life, you balance your personality, and personality kind of translates into power. So Sudha ma'am, you have kind of hit that chord between both worlds. At one point, really just shining out in the world over there at the Met Galas and the First Lady luncheons. And then you also have a family that's 7,000 employees strong, and they also look up to you. So there is a beauty in the brains that's considered like a proper balance. So when we are speaking about the entire shift in power equation, and now we are coming to the how part of it, I'd just like to know your journey. How did you transcend into becoming this leader that could actually manage this balance very well?
Very good morning, and hello Travis. It's a good question. Well, I'm always growth-minded. The challenges that the woman is facing in the Indian society are self-explanatory. I always believe on concentrating on solutions rather than problems. And for me, I always aimed at developing my skills to a certain extent that no one can ignore them, despite of my gender, nationality, background, or whatever it might be. And so I have developed good communication skills, interpersonal relationships, and industry knowledge to navigate my growth to greater extent. And also, my family has been a very big support for me. It has stood like a hard rock behind me, even at most tiring times. And it's so sweet of you to say that beauty with brains. I'm not sure what people truly admire in me, but yes, I do agree beauty and brains go hand in hand, complementing each other. Intelligence is beauty, and true beauty is in mind. And coming to me, the people are the things that I love, whether it's MEIL family, or my own family, or my philanthropic and charitable family, and fashion fraternity to a large. These are all my people. And I believe my admiration towards them is the reflection of their love to me. And to any woman or a child with big dreams like me, what all I can say is, never give up on what you believe in. And you are your biggest project. And never stop learning, growing, and challenging yourself. The hurdles that come across your path are like stepping stones for much better and bigger things. Whether you are a student or a professional or a homemaker, whatever you might be, whatever your aspirations might be, you are the only one who can make your dreams come true.
Oh, that's beautiful. Speaking on this, still staying on the how aspect of overcoming these challenges, Ritu ma'am, I think last week when ET called me and told me that this panel is happening, and then I happen to work very closely with another person I spoke to on this panel, that's Mr. Prahlad Kakkad, and then I told him that I'd be speaking to you at the panel, and he told me that Ritu Beri is that beautiful fashion designer of India who probably never needed a model to promote her clothes. So, he was all in awe, and then I started reading up on the stuff you've done. The first lady of fashion, the first Indian fashion woman to actually go and set standards in Paris and break new ground over there. And now Luxury League is something you've put in place because you want to give our Indian artisans a kind of a platform on the global standard. But we have spoken about limitations holding people back. Rekha ma'am just spoke about the kind of challenges they face. Arundhati ma'am said that even if they are at par, there is a certain bias that seeps into it. I want to know from your perspective, first, how did you overcome all of that? And do you see another Ritu Beri, coming out from can it happen from a small town in India also?
Good morning and thank you, Terence. I think everyone has put in amazing perspective to being a woman. So I'm going to just take over from a few points. For instance, I come from an army background. So I don't know if anyone here is from the same background. So an army discipline, basically, we don't live a very rich life or a flashy life, but we live, at least I was blessed to live, a very aristocratic, down-to-earth, humble, lot of museum holidays, lot of keeping our eyes and ears open, but timing was key, discipline was key. And coming to that point of how at home there is disparity, I have one sibling, a brother, who's a very, very good-looking boy, and possibly the pet of the family, and he was sent to Doon School. And since I was in the army background and my father was shifting every 2 years from one place to the other, they wanted their daughter to stay at home. So I basically went through a convent education. So in small towns, I went to really random schools. I thank my schooling because I think we all are what our education is, and I have to thank, I was in small towns like Solon, Mao, and I was in small schools there for 2 years and then I'd shift again. My brother went to Doon School, which was fantastic, and at that time it was a very important school. And today I always tease my parents and I say, you preferred your son, so you sent him to a better school. And I was sent to, random convent. But having said that, I'm not sure that changed where life took me and where life took my brother. My brother is very comfortable. He doesn't want to challenge himself. He doesn't want to explore adventures and be... so I think it's, what I'm trying to say is that I don't think it's a gender thing, it's a personal thing. My brother had a great exposure, but he's a particular type of person. He's not ambitious enough to want to achieve. I've always been a bit of a rebel. I want to do what nobody else has done. So it's the nature of a woman. And I have to say this thing about she doesn't need a model and all. When I started way back in 1990, that was not a very nice thing or a push for me as a designer, because for a long time I would hear my peers, the media at some level say, oh, she's successful because she's so pretty. So I agree, being attractive, being good looking is a great plus for all of us because it opens the door. But the door shuts very quickly as soon as you prove yourself to be a bimbo. Or, So it's not about your looks or about whatever, whether you're a woman or a man. And I agree that when I have an interview and I have a woman who I'm interviewing, for instance, for my EA, my first question is, oh God, she's going to get married, she's going to have kids, she'll move where her husband will tell her. And it is true, it happens. And it's we women who actually make it happen because we don't give ourselves that priority. And I think being empowered as a woman is when you're actually taking decisions and your husband's turning to you and saying, Ritu, do you think we should do this? Do you think we should send our daughter? Because your opinion, your intelligence makes that difference to run the house. So I think it's a very, very personal thing. You could be a man and be as stupid as, or you could be a woman and make really sensible decisions. But at the start, Ms. Arundhati ji was absolutely right that the first thought is, oh God, she's a woman. When I get an assistant and she's a young, pretty girl, I say, oh God, I'll be doing a fashion show. She'll be coming home at 12. Her parents will stop her from, doing the job. I wish it was a young guy. No, it's a woman who's making that decision simply because we interact with people, we interact with the world, and this is the reality of life.
Yeah, in fact, we've touched upon quite a lot of limitations. Just recapping, as we said, there was bias, there is lack of access to capital, the entire perspectives that have come into place. Now, Rekha ma'am, you have worked with women across, you right from cities, women of different ages, women of different economic backgrounds. While we have addressed a lot of limitations and challenges, in your experience, if you had to single out one which is the most toxic or most crucial challenge or hurdle that women are facing today, and how could they overcome it?
The mindset of the society and the family. That is the most challenging. Whether we make laws which are or strengthening the laws, or policies which are very good for women, or creating opportunities. If we don't change the mindset of people who are working with women or who are in the family, we will not be able to achieve that gender equality or equal opportunity which we are talking about. We won't have those kinds of leadership, women leadership, if we don't have that change in the mindset of the people. And most of the time, we all, even me, I'm sitting here as a chairperson. I feel I was discriminated in early life or in my political life. There is always this word behenji in politics, is very derogatory, and I never used to say bhai sahab to anyone. So they used to think कि ये बहुत modern है, ये भाई साहब नहीं बोलती है. वहाँ से ये struggle शुरू होती है हम लोगों की life में. और politics में ही अगर if we don't have political leaders as women and who are not making policies for women, I think nothing will change. So mindset is not only changing about family or society, also people who are sitting there and making policies. There also we need to change them.
But do we have policies that are detrimental to women interests?
There are policies, but implementation of policies are also being done by us sitting ऊपर जो ऊपर बैठे हैं वो भी वही implementation भी कर रहे हैं. You just making policies and doing nothing about implementation.
But on a legal front, are there laws that actually just favor a man? Is there some law that kind of is?
No laws are, even in our constitution, everything is, we have been given equality, and rather women commission is there that shows, and there is no men commission, which people are tweeting every day to me, there should be a men commission now. It is discriminatory for men now, they are saying.
We need one of everything, so it's आपके पास है मुझे भी चाहिए. Yeah, ma'am, you want to add something?
I think when you're absolutely right that the society has to change, but who is the society consisting of? Us. I remember when I've been on many panels where they talk about men are so bad, they look at women with the bad eye, and the women should dress better, that's why they get raped because they're so badly dressed, and women should not go out. And I turn around and say, who the man working? So my point is that it all starts at home. If me as a mother is bringing up a son with the right value system, that you don't look at women with a bad eye, or you respect women and men are equal. So it's all up to us. I don't think we can sit and blame people. Like you said, the laws are equal, the world is equal. I mean, can you imagine these dynamic women on stage? They make the change. People look at everything differently with them,
Arundhati ma'am, you want to add to
No,
that?
I was just thinking, Premier Golda Meir in Israel, when they had a few attacks on women, there was a suggestion in their parliament, in the Israeli parliament, that there should be a curfew for women at 6. So she turned around and said, why not a curfew for men at 6? Okay, so yeah, I just got reminded about that. But one thing, like you were talking about education. So I'm connected with this foundation called Agastya Foundation that looks after taking labs to schools that don't have them. So the municipality schools, and I'm talking about most of the big capitals in India, state capitals, and I'm talking about Mumbai in this case. And we went to a school in Dharavi where they set up the entire science lab for a class 9 student population, and they were displaying many of these experiments because the school, though it was otherwise quite good, but it doesn't have science labs. And there were all these girls, really, standing up to answer, very, very interested in the whole thing. Now, one thing struck me, that of the 35 women in the class, of the students in the class, there were only 7 boys. And I was very surprised that when did India's gender equation change like this? So I went into the next classroom, and the next classroom was the same. And then the penny dropped. I called one of these girls and I asked her, Bhaiya hai ghar mein? Haan hai. Kahan padta hai? Private school. So all the boys are getting sent to the private schools. The girls are getting sent to the municipal schools, which do not have those kinds of resources or those kinds of pedagogy. And actually speaking, that night I couldn't sleep. I was so disturbed. But then, after a few hours of thinking, I thought at least, let's look at it in a glass half full way. That these girls are at least in school. 10 years back, they would have been at home looking after their siblings and cooking the family's meal. So we have come quite a distance, but not the distance that we still need to travel. We were very lucky, I think, all of us, that we were born in families where there was no discrimination between the girl and the boy child. In fact, I think, again, there was probably a little bit of extra care that I got. My brother used to always complain that you'll always take her side. And I used to tell him that's because I'm right, that's why. But whatever be it, I may not have been right, and maybe, he was a little bit more discriminated. But the fact of the matter is that change has to happen. It has to happen from the grassroots. It has to happen from the lower strata. It has to happen from the family unit. Unless it happens at the family unit, you cannot see it translating into the unit of the state, into the unit of society.
Yeah, I think what Rekha ma'am and Arundhati ma'am said, I was waiting for one of them to say it is, man isn't exactly the enemy. Sometimes we just are made to look like it because we're just everywhere, just pushed into things. But that's not exactly the norm right now. It's a larger picture. It's a more complex picture. It has a lot to do with the entire mindset of things. Speaking of the education front, even though there is a certain push, however, when it comes to taking on leadership roles, there is a certain criteria where people need to be educated in STEM disciplines, science, tech, engineering, maths, and that is where we don't have a lot of women in those disciplines, which is what, I'll come to Vidya ma'am. When you joined IIT Bombay, structural engineer from IIT Bombay, at that time you said you were the only woman over there who exactly took up an entire career in STEM disciplines. And then it's an entire journey from there to being a leader. So speaking on the how aspects still, before we come to the why, could you tell us a little on how did that transcend?
I think the journey from IIT to here has been very complex, very challenging and fulfilling. As a leader, I have changed every day of my life at some level. And at some level, the fundamental levels, the values have remained the same. So it's more of a situational leadership for me. Every day is a different situation, so you need to react differently. What has remained constant is the values of personal and professional integrity, of committing and delivering to what you have promised, and also being fair and transparent in all your dealings. That at that level, I think the version has not changed. It's the same as I was. What changes every day is, do I need to delegate a certain work, or do I need to do it myself, prioritizing, consensus building, and also, this is one message that I want to send out to those budding leaders, women leaders, that don't think that you need to be equal to everyone. You are made different, you are made unique. So there is a bit of a misnomer saying equal. We are not equal, we are all unique. We are created that way. So we have those strengths, build upon those strengths. You don't have to be a finance expert. I have my colleague who is CFO, who advises me on finance, who advises me on HR. So I don't have to be everything. But just build on those inherent strengths of leadership, your empathy, trying to recognize who needs to be lifted. I think that changes every day for me. So that is a journey for me from IIT to here.
In your positions, all 5 women over here have had some massive influence in the sectors that you are, and I just want to know that as Arundhati ma'am said, there is an unconscious bias, and organizations, corporates and leaderships need to do something to kind of advance career opportunities for women. Just to give an example, if I may, you had once advocated a 2-year cycle for women employees in your organization, and you also mandated free vehicle shots for everyone. Now these are kind of initiatives that were done that kind of help level the playing field. Let's just go one by one, in your capacity, if you all have done something personal experience. Let's start with you, Sudha ma'am. The Sudha Reddy Foundation, is there anything that you have or currently doing that you feel can really help aid women on this front?
Actually, I have been to Met Gala and ladies' luncheon, so and so. There I have seen the woman power, only woman power. And I believe that power is taken, it's not given. And throughout my life, from the childhood to now, I never faced any gender discrimination or anything else. And it's all about authenticity is the name of the game. First, if the world have to respect you, you have to respect yourself. And that starts with respecting your roots. The so-called Western culture is nothing but the celebration of their lifestyle and wearing it as a badge of pride and honor. So if you want to be one of them, truly be yourself, proudly be yourself, and loudly be yourself. True power lies in being yourself. So then the world will accept you and say, yes, damn she is.
Ritu ma'am, you want to add to that? You were telling me an inspiring story of a woman that you have met who's doing a lot on this front. The rural front.
No, so when you asked me, are there more Ritu Beris from the villages and all that, I said, I represent as an advisor Ministry of Tribal Affairs, and I do believe that tribal art is true luxury. It's really bespoke, it's handmade, it's so special because it's in the villages that you're creating one of a kind, unique piece that you can't find anywhere else. All over the world, the tribal museums are always looked up as real pieces of art, Whereas in India, if I was to give a tribal piece of art as a gift to somebody's house, they will look at me and say, oh God, what is this, So there are many people, many women, for instance, like there's Ruma Devi, who is from Rajasthan, who's a fashion designer, and she's doing spectacularly well. She's doing a lot of ghagra cholis and stuff like that. And in fact, she was invited to Harvard to give a speech on how she got there. Then there's this other lady from Kutch who's very interesting, who does these bags, Pabbi Ben, so she's making these poly bags, and she's turned her homegrown business into a multi-million-dollar business, which I think is fantastic. It's women like this that bring attention to women and say, okay, if women, and at some level we will all accept, and I don't think it's only the women, but even the men will accept that the grit, determination, strength that a woman has, some men do have, but most men lag behind. Am I right? Please be honest. So I think women at some level are strong. I'm not saying stronger, are strong. So
No, it's stronger. It's good to be just honest about it. So let's come to the final section. We just have 5 minutes. Yeah, we just have 5 minutes.
his mic has shut
Yeah,
down.
we'll come to the final section. That's the why. Okay, why is this shift in power equation very important? And just in one line, if you all could just go. Arundhati ma'am, let's start with you. In one line, why do you feel this shift in power equation is extremely important at this current moment in our?
Well, if you ask me for a one-liner, I'll say it's for the sake of all of us. So whether it is the country's GDP, whether it is, a peace in the way you do things, family life, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that if you are not going to, as I said, nirvana is something that we have always aspired to in the East, right? Nirvana is balance, nothing else. So in one line, if you need to do it, the reason you need to do it is to bring about that balance.
You, Rekha ma'am?
You can't achieve the GDP which we are talking about, and we can't go number one, number two country in the world if you are not letting your 50% of population work or go to the leadership positions.
That makes a lot.
So both the fabulous ladies have really taken my line. I agree with them. It's for India, it's for our home and for our family. Absolutely.
Can you repeat your question, Terence?
Why is this shift in equation
Yes, it's extremely important to get the balance, and as they said, to equate the GDP and our targets and to take India on the top of the world map. It's really very important.
Vidya ma'am?
Like I said before, I think we bring different life experiences as women. We have gone through, I think, twice as challenging a life as anybody else, anywhere in the world, as Indian women. So that perspective adds great value to the boardroom or to the country. So that is exactly why I think the shift has to be encouraged.
Yeah. Well, the shift is more or less becoming evident, because I'll just end with a few positives that the trend and a lot of government initiatives and a lot of our women business leaders have brought. For the first time, according to the 5th National Family and Health Survey, we have, for the first time in India, on our population front, there are 1,020 women per 1,000 men in our country. So that's I think it's a landmark in our country. Women in executive roles, as on date in 2023, are 55% of the working population. We have 14% of entrepreneurs in India. That's 80 million women entrepreneurs currently are leading the front in India. Niti Aayog and WEP have really helped, and in 2021, according to a LinkedIn report, the growth of women leaders has been the highest in India's trajectory. So we have seen this entire shift manifest itself. And before we end, we have space for 1 or 2 questions from the audience, if you all could just pass the mic to one of them. Does anyone have a question for our panel?
Good evening, good afternoon everyone. I am Zainabi, a 19-year-old climate action advocate from Delhi. I thank you so much for such an insightful conversation, as I too believe that women empowerment is not just about having a seat at the table, but also a say at the table. So my question to you is, what advice will you give to me, a young woman starting my journey of creating a significant impact in the society? Thank you.
As ma'am said, everyone has their unique qualities. Don't try to be someone else. Be yourself. Respect your roots. Respect your origins. Proudly be yourself. Then, as I said the world will look at you and say, damn, she's.
I'd just like to add one other thing. Believe me, in your journey, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. But just hang in there. Just hang in there. Don't give up.
Yeah, myself Preeti Singh. To all due respect to all women sitting there is already made to the boardrooms. We still say that you said that 55% women are rising to the leadership position. We still see very few women making to the boardroom. So is it mind shift change is required to change that perception that women can prioritize job against the family, or it's something else to be done professionally? It's a mindset or professional capacity of the women not reaching to the boardroom.
Firstly, women have to understand that family is not only their responsibility. It has to be shared by men. I think that is not there in our culture, and we need to change that. And yes, we are multitasker. We women are multitasker. We can do both very nicely, take care of the family, and also we have to be ambitious. Not that because we are taking care of the family, we can't go for the higher places. So you should choose your destination and work towards it.
Can I just add one more point to that? See, I think as a leader, we should not go in saying that I want to break that glass ceiling or I want to challenge the boys club. I think what we need to just focus on is to perform, to deliver, beyond the best of the next man or woman. So just focus on your performance and your results, and you will be in the boardroom before you know it. As for my own personal instance, I never really aspired for being at the stage I am. But it came because I focused on what I could contribute to the company, to the organization. So I think that is the bottom line for going anywhere.
Cool. So while we end this conversation, I'll just end
Terence,
with...
I'm sorry, but
yeah.
can I take a question?
Yeah, please. Who is that? Oh, yeah. You.
Hi, my name is Amuda. I represent Excellence Maidens. Well, we spoke about a lot of women empowerment. We spoke about the opportunities that we give them. But I have faced a challenge where despite the opportunity, we hired people from blue-collar backgrounds. We trained them for 3 months. And most of them even passed their certifications. The highest was 96% and the lowest was 86%. But despite the fact when we invite them for interviews, there are very few people who will come for the interview. And I'm talking about all the young girls who are fresh graduates. Even after we have given them the job offers, we have noticed the turn-ups have been very less. And by the time it was 1-year-old project, we just had 3 girls who continued working, and most of them have decided to, get married or, move on to something else. Now it's extremely difficult for me to, and these are CSR projects which are sponsored by corporates. It's extremely difficult for me to tell another corporate to sponsor a project like that. Because their question is that, Amuda, at the end of the year, I only have, out of 35 girls, only 3 have decided to continue. Why should we do this project? I am not discouraged to take this, to the next level and do it again. But then how should I convince those girls that, how important these platforms are and how you should value it? So that's my question. Thank you.
I don't think you can convince them. They have to be convinced. It's the motivation that's missing, and what motivates most young girls from a particular segment is the fact that they would earn a particular amount, and at a CSR project, I don't think that's such a great inspiration. So I don't think you and I can do much. It's the background, it's the girl herself who has to understand that this is the way forward, and I'm sure things are going to change with time.
If I can just very quickly add, we just did a return to work program for women who had taken gaps in their working lives on account of various reasons. We started with a pilot of 15 women, and we've been able to retain 14 of them, and all their teams are absolutely, very appreciative of the kind of productivity that these women are giving. I think for you, what I would ask you to do is to be more careful about the choice of the candidates that you take on. And the second thing is, along with the skills that you're imparting, they need mentorship as to how to face their families, how to prioritize their work, how to manage both work and life. So that kind of inputs too, the soft inputs, so to speak, as well as the mentorship input, if possible, from the corporates themselves, that would definitely help.
Can I also add from our own experience of running CSR projects? So what is required is to expose them more and more to people who have succeeded. Maybe from the same batch, if 3 have gone ahead, bring those 3 girls as examples, speak up and show it to the other 42 who have lagged behind. So once they see that there is positive result, that their life can change, I think that will add to your success. And don't be disheartened by the failure. It can happen with boys also. Why only girls? In a class of 50, there may be boys falling off the track. So it's not just unique to women, it also happens the other way around. So I think exposure, speaking up, showing them some examples of girls who have succeeded will also bring you better results.
Cool, just to wrap up, we spoke about shift in power equation, we went to the what it is, how it is, and the entire why. I'll just like to summarize, that to everyone gathered over here, if you really want to answer this question, I think you just need to look up stories. See, that makes all the difference between a name and inspiration. Just to give you an example, while I was invited to moderate this panel, I got an email, and then, all I had was 5 names in my email inbox. And then I started reading up about these wonderful women. When we came over here, we saw 5 names. You'll see 5 names on the agenda, 5 names on the MC sheet, 5 names on a poster. But then when you read their story, you'll be inspired. And that's when these names actually start to have some meaning. Where you have the first woman who was the structural engineer at IIT Bombay and is now the country head of Ramboll. You have a woman who's actually leading a foundation, empowering other women, making waves in the West, but still holding true to her South Indian roots. You have a woman who's creating a platform for our artisans globally, and the first woman who actually made waves in Paris in the fashion field. You have a woman who's encouraging other women to come and join the government, take up leadership roles, and is like a backbone to women who are fighting the big fight for their rights. And when it comes to Arundhati ma'am, I'll share a personal experience. Last month, for one of my campaigns, I happened to visit SBI Bhavan. That's like the big building in Bombay, and that's where the premier institution has it's like a legacy building. And while I was waiting for the meeting to happen, there's this huge lobby, and it's like this huge wall over there with close to, I think, 80 paintings, and they're all canvas paintings, and they are all the chairman of SBI, and you walk through that lobby, and you go painting to painting to painting, and faces of guys, faces of guys, faces of men. And at the end of that painting, there is this canvas about this big, and there's this woman over there with a red sari. And it's the only woman in that wall of like 80 men. So I think that's like, I don't see anything else that spells a shift in power equation more than that. And to all my fellow panelists, it's been an honor just having this conversation with you. Thank you for gracing this. And thank you, ETH, and thank you, everyone.